Hello everyone. As we have discussed about the retributive theory of punishment, norm theory of punishment, and the preventive theory of punishment in our previous video lecture, here we would understand that what we call the expiatory theory of punishment and the reformative theory of punishment. You know, the what is the ultimate goal of criminal law? The ultimate goal, the ultimate object of criminal law. The ultimate object of criminal law is that criminal law is not to apply. The criminal law not come into effect. The criminal law should not put into motion. That is the ultimate object. That is the ultimate goal of the criminal law. We have three branches of the criminology, that is criminology, that is penology, and the victimology. So in case of theories of punishment, we have to focus over these three branches, that is criminology, penology, and victimology. In case of criminology, we would generally study about what are the behavior of the criminal before the commission of the crime and the after the commission of the crime. Similarly, the penology. In case of penology, we generally study about the punishment imposed over the criminal and also how crime should be prevented. Similarly, in case of victimology, we generally study that how victim would be rehabilitated in the society, how victim would be treated, and what kind of compensation should be given to the victim. And therefore, the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 was amended, and a new provision called Section 357A has been added to it. Uh, Come to the point, the expiatory theory of punishment. Here, the expiatory in Hindi is called the प्रायश्चित. In Hindu mythology, it is called the प्रायश्चित. अगर कोई पाप किया है, किसी ने कोई गुनाह किया है, किसी ने कोई क्राइम किया है, तो उसका उसको प्रायश्चित करने का अधिकार है। प्रायश्चित का मतलब होता है कि अपने मन की शुद्धि के लिए जो धर्म में बताया गया है कि आप ये काम करेंगे तो आपके पापों का प्रायश्चित होगा. Similarly, in Islam, there is a term called तौबा. आपने अगर कोई गुनाह किया है, अगर आपने सिद्क दिल से तौबा किया है, then you can be exempted from the criminal liability in the eyes of the God. Similarly, the confession in Christianity. If any person committed any crime, then he go before the padri, he go before the priest, and he confessed his crime, and the priest suggests him some methods, some expiation. Then he do such things, then it is considered that he is absolved from the criminal liability, and now he become pure. So punishment is necessary for the purification. After expiation, after repentance, after penance, he become a pure person. So this particular theory is also known as theory of penance, theory of repentance, and therefore we generally say, or we would say, that punishment is necessary for the purification, and therefore there is a formula called guilt plus punishment is equal to innocent. If anybody committed a crime or he is guilty, then definitely there would be punishment, and if the punishment imposed over the person, the appropriate punishment imposed over the person, then definitely now he become innocent and he can be rehabilitated in the society. Now come to the point, what is given under the Manu Smriti with respect to expiatory theory of punishment. As Manu says, men who are guilty of crime, men who are guilty of crimes when condemned by the king, or we can say when punished by the king, became a pure and go to heaven in the same way as good as virtue men goes. So, what does it mean? If any person commits any crime in the society, and if he has been punished by the king, he has been punished by the sovereign, then he go to heaven as the same way as good or as virtuous men go to the heaven. So, what we understood is that the punishment should be in order to adjust the suffering to the sin. What does it mean? The punishment should be in proportionate with the crime committed. If the punishment is exceptionally higher than the crime committed, then definitely it would revert back and he would become a professional criminal in the society. Man undergo the punishment so that the wrong done by him may be expiated. So the person go under punishment so that whatever the wrong done by him may be expiated. It washed away the sin. Whatever the sin has been committed by the person, it has been washed away by the imposition of punishment that is under the Hindu mythology, or in Islam, or is in Christianity, or in Sikhism. So in approximately all the religion, the expiatory theory of punishment is prevalent. There are various jurists who suggest that the punishment should be in order to adjust the suffering, so that to the suffering to the sin. What does it mean? The punishment should be in proportionate with the crime committed, and the offender purified by beating, the offender purified by the imposition of punishment, by sending him into the jail. So while we are sending him into the jail, it is a kind of physical torture, and if it is a kind of physical torture, then he become purified. Purification is not of individual alone, rather entire humanity. What does it mean? Once the person is purified, when the person is given punishment, then he now become purified, and it is for the humanity in general and not for the individual alone. And what we understood, that the suffering must be equal to the guilt. If suffering is not equal to the guilt, then he would become a habitual criminal or the professional criminal in the society. But practically, it is very difficult to impose the proportionate imprisonment, the proportionate punishment to the guilt committed by the individual. So it is very difficult to decide that up to what extent he should be punished, up to what extent the imprisonment should be awarded. It is very difficult for the judge to decide. It is very difficult to measure that punishment should be equal guilt, or punishment is equal to guilt. If we can come to another aspect of the punishment, or the expiatory theory of punishment, that is, suffering may vary with respect to two people. As we are saying that suffering must be equal to the guilt, but that suffering is vary with respect to two people. As suppose the same suffering has been imposed on the two people who had committed the same crime. So in that case, on one, it may amount to torture because he had committed first time the crime in the society, or he may be a very weak person, or he is very reputed person in the society. So for him, the same amount of punishment would be a torture for him. But suppose the habitual, at the same time, the habitual criminal is also being punished with the same punishment, then that punishment uh, would be a childish act, a child's play for that habitual criminal. So it is very difficult for a judge to decide that to what kind of punishment should be given, and up to what extent the punishment should be given to the individual. So every judge should keep in mind while imposing the punishment the facts and circumstances of each case, his age, his family background, the environment under which he is brought up, and the circumstances under which the crime is committed. These all things has to be taken into consideration while imposing the punishment. Come to another theory of punishment, that is reformative theory of punishment. It is also known as the corrective theory of punishment or rehabilitative theory of punishment. Why we call it the corrective theory, the rehabilitative theory, or the reformative theory of punishment? When the criminal are sent to jail, the primary objective is to reform him and to settle him again into the society. It is the primary duty of the state to correct him, to rehabilitate him into the society. He is not given punishment only for the crime committed, rather, the punishment is given so that he may be reformed, he may be corrected, and again he may be rehabilitated, he may be settled down in the society again, and therefore it is called the corrective theory of punishment or the rehabilitative theory of punishment. You might have heard the term correctional center or the reformative center or the dwelling house or juvenile house. These are the new terms for the jail, for the imprisonment. It is called the reformative center because the criminal are being sent to jail to reform, so that they may be reformed. It is also called the corrective center. They are being corrected at the jail, and also it is called dwelling house and juvenile house. Why it is called the juvenile house? The reason is, when the juvenile is committing any crime, then he is not sent to the jail where the hardened criminal are residing, where the hardened criminal are being sent by the court of law. Rather, they are being separated so that they may again be rehabilitated into the society. This is the primary objective of the law. This is the primary objective of reformative theory of punishment. Now, come to the point, the reformation means. What is meant by the reformation? The effort to restore a man to the society as a better and wiser man and as a good citizen. This is called the reformation. When we are making an effort to restore the man who had committed a crime in the society, to make him a better man, to make him a good citizen, to make him a wiser man, so that he may be rehabilitated in the society, and that is meant by reformation, and that we call the reformative theory of punishment or the rehabilitative theory of punishment. The object of punishment is the reformation of criminal. That what we understood. The main and the primary object of the reformative theory of punishment is the reformation of criminal so that he may be rehabilitated in the society, and therefore they must be educated in the jail. They must be taught some kind of art so that after going from the jail, after releasing from the jail, they must be settled down in the society, they must be rehabilitated in the society. ऐसा ना हो कि society ये बोले कि तुम्हें तो कोई काम ही नहीं आता. So they must be taught some arts, they must be taught some crafts industry, so that they must be rehabilitated in the society. You might have heard that some of the open university like IGNOU offering some courses into the jail, so that those who are interested to study, they must study through the IGNOU distance education learning system, and that is why the education is being imparted into the jail, so that they may be well rehabilitated into the society, so that they may have a better life, they may have a good life, they may lead to a good life into the society, they may become a respectable and a good citizen, in the society. So this is the primary objective of the reformative theory of punishment. It is not only punishing the individual for the crime committed, rather it is the reforming the criminals so that they may be rehabilitated in the society. So a judge, while awarding the punishment, he should keep in mind certain things like the character, the educational qualification, the age of the offender, the early life of the offender, the family background of the offender, the environment under which he has been brought up, the circumstances under which the crime committed. All these things has to be taken into consideration while awarding the punishment. ऐसा ना हो कि उसने ग्रेव एंड सडन प्रोवोकेशन में आकर के कोई क्राइम किया हो, या हो सकता है कि वो बहुत ही यंग एज का हो, 14 इयर्स, 15 इयर्स और 16 इयर्स, तो उसमें ऐसा ना हो कि उसे डेथ पेनल्टी दे दी जाए. So these things has to be taken into consideration, and also the most important thing, his character has to be taken, his previous character has to be taken into consideration while awarding the punishment. So after punishment, he come back to the society. He being rehabilitated in the society. He is not a born criminal. He is not a born criminal, but a potential criminal deserve punishment. A potential criminal, those who cannot be reformed, they deserve punishment. There are not much various criticism of the reformative theory of punishment. The main defect of this reformative theory of punishment is the incurably bad people. They cannot be reformed. कुछ ऐसे लोग होते हैं, 5 to 10% of people, they cannot be reformed even though they are sent to the jail, even though they are separated to the separated from the society. If they are living in exile, they cannot be reformed. So they are incurably bad people, and therefore reformative theory of punishment would have no impact on this type of criminals. Point number two, that some people enjoy immunity in jail also. For example, the politicians, they have more luxurious life in the jail, and therefore they enjoy jail life. So if they are enjoying the jail life, so whether they can be reformed, of course they cannot be reformed. So these two three things are the main criticism of the reformative theory of punishment. But in India right now it is prevalent. The reformative theory of punishment is prevalent, although all the theories of punishment are being prevalent. And not only reformative theory of punishment is prevalent, rather all the theories are being prevalent. Somehow we have to take into consideration the facts and circumstances of each case, and each theory having its importance, each theory having its own role over the life of the criminal. Hope you have understood that what we call the theories of punishment under the criminal law. Thank you very much.